I don't know what I'm going to talk about.
Okay. Well, well, why don't we talk about, a question was asked in the pause. How did you find out Granddad was alive in April of 1942?
Oh, okay. Now, can I start?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. After Pearl Harbor, I got a job at the chemical plant up in a little outside of Charleston. And I had a good job and I liked it. But it occupied me because I didn't hear from my husband after Pearl Harbor until Daddy brought me up and brought it to the company for me to open up at my job on Good Friday.
Was it a telegram?
In the spring. No, it wasn't a telegram. It was a letter. I did receive telegrams from him every now and then, but that setup was not set up yet. And then we could begin a correspondence. It took some time sometimes if he was at sea for the mail to catch up with him. But we wrote back and forth. As I said, the letters are all still packed in a stack in the garage because he was gone a title of 3 years before he got back. And when he came back, he got to Pearl Harbor. And he said when he got to Pearl Harbor, he'd be able to tell me when he thought he'd be in San Francisco. I went out a few days early of what I planned to do because I could wait for him at the Marine Hotel. And it was a little strange, to be honest, to see him again. But it was wonderful. He came in and phoned me from the desk and said he was in the hotel. And as soon as he got cleaned up, I mean, he had a decent shower to put some clothes on, he'd be down. So it took, about 45 minutes to knock on the door, and there he was. So we were back together. I'm trying to think of what our duty was. I think he was assigned to duty. The war was over then.
Well, so
was it?
It wasn't quite over so he left. When you say he was gone for 3 years, do you count the time before the war started? I'm
talking, he was gone from the time I saw him and said goodbye in Hawaii until the war was not over when he came back.
No, it wasn't.
Mm-mm. I think it went on to
2 more years.
In 45.
I'm wondering if he went back in the war. I just suddenly can't think what we did, where we were, what we did after that. Of course, we had vacation time and he went home to see his family. And I was with him, of course, for that. And then he went up to see my family for just a few days. But he had spent a good bit of his time, which was the way it should be, with his own family. And
right.
He did have a younger brother who had a bride and a little girl by then, and he hadn't seen either one of them or ever met him because he was still at sea. And, and Robert Lee, his younger brother, had indeed gone out, and I remember somehow they're getting together. I believe it was when we were in San Diego 3 years before that. I believe we saw him there several times because he was in training there or something like that. I had forgotten about that when I was talking about.
So wait, Joe was in San Diego for a little while for training before he went to Pearl Harbor?
Yes.
Okay.
Joe wasn't. He was just there waiting for a ship to go out.
Okay.
So, and Robert Lee was there stationed on a ship.
Okay.
That's where it was. So we did see him several times.
So. And we were going to talk about, so at this point, when did Martha meet Jim Smith?
Oh, that was interesting. Remember I told you the weekend that our boyfriends were not going to be in the Norfolk, Virginia? Mm-hmm. Well, she stayed there And a friend asked her if she'd like to go down to the University of, it was someplace in Virginia, not Virginia, below it. I forgot what school it was. Anyhow, she
North
went,
Carolina?
Huh?
North Carolina?
Yes, I think it was North Carolina because it was south of Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And so she went with her friend and went to a dance. And it turned out that the Naval Academy, I'm trying to think what kind of a team it was that Jim was on. The man, Jim Smith, was on. That doesn't matter. He was there at the dance because they had been invited to stay and see the dance. And of course, when he spotted anybody that he thought he had seen at the Naval Academy, he danced with them, and Martha was there. And that's how they became acquainted. He cut her off for a dance, and they started then. And that's when I don't know if they had dates or what, because it was sometime after that before. Oh, he went to flight school, and they were writing letters. And he was the one that sort of started it. And she was writing back and forth to him, and they had seen one another some other place, perhaps in Norfolk, I don't know where, in between times, for just a short while, though.
Had they gotten married before he went out to the war?
No.
Okay, so they were just boyfriend, girlfriends.
They were just, they had just met like that. But that's when they started really getting serious. He got serious. She didn't know he was serious, really. Because he was a New Englander, and she wasn't used to people, except the Virginians, West Virginians. At any rate, when he finished his flight school, he said he was going home, but he would like to come via Charleston, West Virginia, which he did. And that really, I don't know when they got engaged, because Martha had at one time been engaged to a midshipman whose father was an admiral. And the family liked her very, very much, so they were disappointed when she decided against it.
So, Granddad came back. Granddad came back in 1943.
43, yes. And he was assigned to the Naval Academy, I think, because the war was over by the time we got there.
Well, so there are kind of 2 years in between 1943 and 1945. So do you think maybe he did go back out into the war after you saw him? Or do you think maybe he was stationed stateside?
No, I did not. When he came home to San Francisco, San Francisco, he was assigned to the Naval Academy. But I think the war came over before we ever got there. Of course, he had a long leave. I think he had a month's leave because he hadn't had any vacation, and it had built up, you see. So
we're still kind of missing about 2 years.
Well, maybe I have lost those 2 years. I'm sorry, but I'm confused about it.
That's okay. It was a long time ago. So, but basically you remember going back with Granddad after he came back, and you went to the Naval Academy.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And what was he doing there?
He was teaching history and something else. At least he was just teaching history courses the first year he was there. Then the second year he was there, they added, I forgot what it was because they sent him to a school in Washington for a month to learn whatever this was he was doing, and I've forgotten what it was. But it wasn't the normal line that you would see. It was something special. They wanted him to learn and then teach. I don't recall what it was. But we liked our time there. It was wonderful. Your father was born in the hospital there.
But before Dad was born, did not Rand, did Jane have Skip before or after Dad was born?
After. He's 6 months younger than your father.
Okay, and is...
No, I mean your father's 6 months older than he is.
Okay,
yeah.
So Dad is 6 months older than Skip. And at this point, had Betty gotten married?
Oh, well, I'll tell that story right now.
Okay.
When we got to Annapolis, Maryland, we were glad to see David Bell, who's one of Joe's best friends. And he just suddenly knocked on the door one night. Now, it was in August, and it was that summer. And Betty had come to visit us. And he knocked on the door while we were eating dinner one night and surprised us because we thought he was still in Hawaii with the ship he was with. And so it was very pleasant. And the minute he laid eyes on Betty, he had said that when he saw her for the first time at dinner, when she had a blind date with Joe, or at any rate he saw her one night when we had dinner aboard the ship, and he thought she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. Well, she was a beauty. She was Miss West Virginia for 2 years, as I think I may have already told you. And but so they got like this, two people together. So he dated her every night. She had already dated somebody else who got lost in the shuffle. But she dated him every night, and you could see that things were happening. And he was a good friend of Joe's, so we were so pleased at everything. And Betty was the oldest of us, but she had never married. I don't know, she was about your age, I think, when she got married.
So David Bell had a first wife, correct?
What?
David Bell was married before?
Yes. His first wife was Jerry, and she was really my best friend.
But what happened to her?
I haven't mentioned this sooner, but she was my roommate, for instance, and she was the one that went with me with the cars. We were, best friends. Yeah. But during the war, she took dancing lessons. She got interested in the partner that she had. And all this I did not know, because she didn't write me about it or anything. And then she suddenly wrote me a letter saying something to the effect that when David came back, that they weren't getting along or something like that, which shocked me. They'd been sweethearts since they were in high school, and all the way through the Naval Academy, and then the marriage all the way through the war and everything. But she said that the war had cured her. She didn't want to be married to a naval officer anymore, considering and everything. Well, as I said, he was divorced when Betty saw him then.
Okay, so that's how David Bell ended up with your sister.
Yes, and he ended up with my sister. Well, this took off like a hot potato. Their correspondence and the phone calls that they had back and forth. And then she visited him, stayed with me, but to see David, because he was in school there. I've forgotten for what. He's an engineer of sorts, and he was doing some sort of that when Joe was doing teaching. And and she came over on weekends, and then he got off every now and then because I think he had to go to school 5 days a week. He couldn't really exit out one. So, and they were married at Christmas time.
Oh, from August to Christmas.
They had, wonderful. They were married Christmas. And of course, I was her maid of honor.
Of course. Okay, well, we'll talk more about that in our next section.